So I've been seeing mostly on Facebook, so discourse quality is not great. Discourse about whether or not Neon Genesis Evangelion is too sexual, inappropriately sexual, I guess. Um, Now, this seems to be mostly from people who haven't seen Evangelion and only know about it through other discourse. So at the very least, this is not like generally coming from like a place of knowledge, but this is like the second time I've seen discourse about this like this week. So I wanted to mention it, bring it up. So the thing about, I feel like people complaining about the sexual content in Evangelion um, comes from a couple different places. I mean, the obvious thing is like the Puritans, like uh, uh, attitude towards sexual content in media in general, which is sort of that uh, it that sexuality is a sort of different domain than the rest of life, which I don't agree with, obviously. Um, but there's there's another element which is this expectation that a piece of media is going to be a product rather than a piece of art, which is to say that you consume a piece of media because it makes you feel good versus because it is an encounter with radical alterity that changes you as a person. And if you're not ready to be changed as a person, don't watch Evangelion. Don't watch Berserk, which is the other thing that got brought up. Um, those are pieces of media intended for adults, largely. I mean, Evangelion very much spoke to me as a teen, but not intended for small children. They're not going to understand it. Um, and dealing very specifically with difficult topics in a confrontational way, right? This is Evangelion is a show that I encountered as a teenager, and it is pivotal in why I'm like a person people want to hang around with to some degree now, right? If I hadn't watched Evangelion at 14, like I'd probably be one of those annoying incels right now because I was definitely on that path, and basically I saw the the hospital scene of End of Evangelion, and I'm like, holy shit! Like that's what happens if, or not what happens, but that's the mentality you enter into if you don't at some point stop being Shinji. And it motivated me. Stop being Shinji. Figure out what it is that he's doing wrong and don't do that. Um, which is essentially like, which is essentially like, outgrow the narcissism um, of like a certain flavor of low self esteem. Right? Stop obsessing over your own wounds and start trying to like actively build connections, and sort of build up a world that is functional for you, um, as opposed to trying to desperately struggle to fill up these things that really can't be filled up, um, and if there was not that sexual content in which again like in Evangelion there's not a whole lot of sexual content even like by anime standards. Evangelion is very tame. It was not necessarily it was not so tame. No, I shouldn't even say that because Ranma one half is much less tame and came out years before. Um, uh, but yeah, I mean, Evangelion was unusually dark and psychosexual for an anime that aired on TV at the time. But uh, from today's perspective, it is neither unusually psychosexual for an anime, nor unusually sexual in general. And if you're a Westerner, uh, in terms of content, you're going to see, more explicit content on any episode of Law and Order than you're going to see in Evangelion. Um, so like the this idea that it's very difficult is overblown. No, it the reason it's difficult is in order to connect with the show, you need to be emotionally mature enough to understand what the characters are going through, which is not always made explicit. Um, and if you're so people do connect with the cozy atmosphere of some of the middle episodes of Evangelion, including myself. This is the reason why there's an enormous amount of like fluffy spin-off media where they're just in high school. So on a product level, yes, Evangelion succeeds. But the reason people remember Evangelion is that they had an artistic encounter with it, and it fundamentally changed who they were, generally for the better. And it did that by uh, forcing them to struggle with who they are right now. And it did that by like showing them a character that they could relate to and then pointing out exactly what those characters' dysfunctions are. Um, or pointing out a character that they find interesting, and then pointing out that the reason why they're drawn to that character may be a dysfunction. Um, and if the show is less realistic, and this comes down to including things like a reasonably realistic depiction of adolescent sexuality, where these kids that they're feeling these needs that they don't understand, right? They're feeling these desires that are very intense that they don't understand, and they don't have the skills um, to deal with them in a healthy way. And you also have these adults who also don't have the skills to deal with desire and interpersonal connection and everything in a healthy way. The show is about this multi-generational trauma. If you want to watch Evangelion, you need to be ready for a show that is about intergenerational trauma. Okay? Uh, so yeah, I mean, I think I've expressed why I think that this case that people should be uh, either avoiding Evangelion on the basis that there's nipples in the movie, um, or that all of the sexuality should be cut out of Evangelion because some of the major characters are 14. I feel like I've expressed why that's stupid, right? Um, if you are ready for like actually connecting to a piece of art, um, you know, go ahead, watch Evangelion. It's a beautiful show. I feel like I may have overstated just how emotionally difficult it is because you need to open yourself up to that to have the full experience, right? You have to allow it to really mess with you. So you can have like a casual experience with Evangelion if you want. It's just not how I would recommend it. But go watch it if you're ready for that kind of experience.